I don't disagree. I don't think Sarah walked into writing ACOTAR being like, I'm going to cast aspersions on the England and Ireland conflict, and I'm going to, put forth a bunch of commentary about that. I'm absolutely sure that wasn't her intention. But this really does come down to not realizing the historical impact of the things that you're working on. This could have been avoided with just like a little bit of research. Okay, so a good like American themed example here. Like, I'm American and I'm Latino. I think this is going to be the simplest example that I personally can think of off of the top of my head right now. Let's say Sarah had written a story about where she had casted aspersions upon the immigration crisis in America. Like, let's say she had written the story about like the night court, instead of dealing with the oppressive forces in Highburn, and let's say Highburn was more coded like the countries of Latin America, and let's say she had this whole narrative about like, I don't know, gangs and people crossing borders illegally and like that kind of thing. And I think as Americans we would see immediately that that's fucked up, but I think also that kind of narrative and that kind of plot line actually does a lot to erase the issues that the oppressive force, which would be the United States is the reason why the countries in Latin America are so fucked up and why they're running here to immigrate away from what America did to those countries. And while I can't say I'm like super well informed about like the immigration crisis as much as I would like to be, I can also say that like my family fled from a Latin American country years and years before I was born, and that is a huge reason why they're here today, because of the problems that America basically inflicted upon that country, and then they had to basically run away from it. If Sarah had written a story about that and not at least paid lip service to the idea that the oppressive force being like the American coded or like the white people coded force in that story did a lot of things wrong and are part of the reason why this conflict is happening, or at least most of the reason why this thing is happening, she would be fucked up and she did it wrong. And that's the issue with this whole thing about like the England Ireland thing. Like she calls it Highburn, which is like, from what I understand, a Roman name for Ireland, and she's not intending to like cast aspersions on like the English-Irish conflict, but she still did it, which is why like you got to do a little research. You got to know at least a little history before you start just naming things willy-nilly, because then you have a situation like this and we're just like, are you a colonialist, Sarah? Please stop being a colonialist. It's the year of our Lord 2024. We don't need this kind of energy in our high fantasy, I'm not like super well versed on the American immigration crisis as I would like to be. So I don't know if I explained my example very well, but I do think that it would be incredibly fucked up if a high fantasy author like wrote a story that drew parallels to a real life conflict and then played down the oppressive forces role in that conflict, and then casted like the quote minority figure of the antagonistic force as the ones that are truly in the wrong, when in reality that's not the case. Like you're actually creating commentary when you're not meaning to, and then you're muddying the waters with that, and then people are going to see your opinions in that, even if you weren't trying to assert your opinions in your work,